On the morning of June 19, 1864, thousands of spectators lined the cliffs and beaches of Cherbourg, France, craning for a view of something almost no one alive had ever witnessed. Two warships about to fight to the death within sight of a peaceful European shore. Out beyond the breakwater, under a clear sky and a freshening breeze, the most feared commerce raider in the world was about to make her last stand. For nearly 2 years, the CSS Alabama had haunted the world's oceans like a ghost ship, and now her hunter had finally cornered her. The story of the Alabama began in the shipyards of Birkenhead, England, where in the summer of 1862, a sleek, fast, steam and sail hybrid vessel slipped out of John Laird Sons and Company under deliberate secrecy, built for the Confederacy despite Britain's official neutrality in the American Civil War. Commissioned as a commerce raider, her mission was not to fight Union warships directly, but to strangle the Union's economy by hunting down its merchant fleet. And under the command of Captain Raphael Semmes, a Maryland-born officer with a sharp legal mind and an even sharper instinct for naval warfare, she did exactly that with terrifying efficiency. Over the next 22 months, the Alabama prowled the Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, the South Atlantic, and even the Indian Ocean, capturing and burning more than 60 American merchant vessels, sending insurance rates soaring and forcing dozens of Union shipowners to reflag their vessels under foreign colors just to survive. Semmes ran his ship like a chess match, using deception, speed, and surprise rather than brute force, often flying false flags to lure unsuspecting merchant captains close before revealing his true colors and seizing their cargo. But by the spring of 1864, the Alabama herself was wearing out. Her boilers were failing, her hull was fouled with marine growth after months without proper maintenance, and her crew was exhausted from constant cruising without a true home port. Desperate for repairs, Semmes sailed into the French harbour of Cherbourg on June 11, 1864, hoping for a quiet refit before continuing his campaign. Instead, word of his arrival raced across the telegraph wires to the United States Navy, and within days the USS Kearsarge, commanded by Captain John Winslow, arrived off the harbour mouth and took up a watchful position just outside French territorial waters, effectively trapping the Alabama inside. Winslow and Semmes were no strangers to one another. The two captains had served together years earlier in the antebellum US Navy, and now fate had placed them on opposite sides of a duel neither could avoid. Semmes faced an agonizing choice: remain bottled up in a neutral port indefinitely, watching his famous ship slowly rust into irrelevance, or sail out and fight. True to the reputation he had built, Semmes chose to fight, sending word through diplomatic channels that he intended to engage the Kearsarge directly, transforming what might have been a quiet blockade into a publicly anticipated showdown. On the morning of June 19th, the Alabama steamed out of Cherbourg Harbour, escorted partway by a French ironclad to ensure neutrality was respected. While crowds gathered on the cliffs, special trains arrived from Paris, and even the artist Edouard Manet would later capture the moment on canvas. What Semmes did not fully know was that the Kearsarge, though appearing to be an ordinary wooden sloop, had been quietly reinforced. Her crew had draped sections of heavy iron chain along her midsection and concealed it behind wooden panelling, creating improvised armour that would prove decisive in the coming exchange. As the two ships closed to within a mile of each other, Semmes ordered the first shots fired, and the Alabama's guns roared to life. But in a cruel twist of fate, much of her ammunition had degraded during her long months at sea, and shell after shell either misfired or failed to detonate, including one famous round that lodged itself directly into the Kearsarge's stern post without exploding. A single dud that, had it gone off, might have changed the entire outcome of the battle. The two ships began circling one another in tightening loops, exchanging broadside after broadside at close range, the air filling with smoke and the thunder of naval gunfire echoing off the French coastline as stunned civilians watched history unfold from the safety of the shore. The Kearsarge's gunnery, methodical and disciplined, began to tell. Her shells tore into the Alabama's hull below the waterline, and within roughly an hour, what had once been the scourge of Union shipping was listing badly, taking on water far faster than her crew could manage. Semmes, recognizing the inevitable, ordered his colors struck in surrender, And as the Alabama began her final plunge beneath the waves, survivors scrambled into the churning water. Some pulled aboard boats from the Kearsarge itself, others rescued by a nearby English pleasure yacht called the Deerhound, whose owner happened to be sympathetic to the Confederate cause, and who quietly carried the wounded Semmes and a number of his officers to safety in England beyond the reach of Union capture. The Alabama sank to the bottom of the English Channel, her wreck undiscovered for over a century, until French and American researchers finally located and began excavating it in the 1980s, recovering cannons, personal effects, and pieces of the ship's structure that now rest in museums as tangible echoes of that single morning's violence. The sinking of the Alabama did not end with cannon smoke and sea foam. It triggered a diplomatic reckoning that outlived the war itself, as the United States later demanded compensation from Great Britain for allowing Confederate raiders to be built on British soil, a dispute resolved nearly a decade later through international arbitration in Geneva, where Britain was ordered to pay over $15 million in damages, establishing one of the earliest precedents for resolving international conflicts through law rather than force. In the end, the Alabama's story is more than a tale of cannon fire and sinking ships. It is a story of how a single vessel, built in secrecy and commanded by audacity, could alter global shipping, strain international diplomacy, and capture the imagination of a watching world, proving that even far from America's shores, the Civil War's reach extended across oceans, and that sometimes the most consequential battles are fought not for territory but for the simple, brutal question of which ship sails home.